He stared straight into my eyes, his voice calm, like he was just ordering an extra side of mashed potatoes, and said, "The best Christmas gift would be if you just died." That was my son, my only child. If you're listening to this, please like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment about where you're tuning in from. So I gave him exactly what he wanted, but not before I canceled their mortgage, emptied every bank account, and left something on his desk that made his picture-perfect life fall apart in seconds. You want your mother gone? Be careful what you wish for. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. I need your likes and comments to know you're keeping up with my story. It all happened 3 days before Christmas in the house I helped pay for but never truly felt at home in. I was folding towels in the laundry room, warm steam rising from the dryer as I stacked the soft fabric into neat piles. The door was cracked open. I hadn't meant to listen. God, I wish I hadn't. Ethan's voice came through, low and bitter. Honestly, the best gift this year would be if she just died. My hands froze mid-fold. I stared at the red towel like it had turned into glass. Madison's voice followed, casual, like they were just talking about socks. You said it, not me. The silence after that was worse than the words themselves. My son. My only child. I waited, heart hammering, hoping he'd laugh it off, say he was joking, say something human. But he didn't. He just sighed. It's exhausting her being here all the time. We can't keep doing this. I pressed my palm to the counter to steady myself. The towel slipped from my hands. I didn't care. She's not dying anytime soon, Madison said with her own sigh. Guess we'll just have to suck it up until then. I backed away from the door before I screamed. Or cried. Or crumbled right there. My knees barely held me as I climbed the stairs to the in-law suite they so generously let me stay in. My room. The one they never let me decorate. The one without locks. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing until my vision blurred. My fingers reached for the little notebook in the nightstand, the one with grocery lists and reminders to refill my blood pressure meds. I flipped to a blank page and wrote it down word for word. The best gift this year would be if she just died. I read it once. Twice. Trying to convince myself I'd misheard. But I hadn't. My own son, the baby I carried through 28 hours of labor, wished me dead so he could have a more peaceful Christmas. The man who cried at his wedding. The man who called me his hero at his father's funeral. I thought about all the times I'd left extra money in his kitchen drawer when they were short that month. The babysitting. The groceries. The 6 figures I gave them to buy this house. All of it meaningless now. I looked around my tiny space. The off-white walls, the single dresser, the folded blankets in the corner for when the grandkids wanted to sleep over. They hadn't wanted to in months. My throat tightened, but no tears came. Just an ache. A deep hollow ache that spread through my chest and settled in my bones. I stood and walked to the closet. Opened it. Stared at the suitcases I hadn't touched since moving in 3 years ago. The small one still had the airline tag from the cruise I'd canceled when Ethan lost his job. I bent down, unzipped it, and pulled out the envelope I'd taped inside the lining years ago. The one labeled Plan B. My late husband always told me, trust people with your heart, not your money. I hadn't listened. But I remembered his words as I pulled out the co-ownership contract and the deed with my name still on it. Ethan had never filed the updated paperwork. I never paid the lawyer to finish the papers that would remove me. He kept saying he'd get to it, but he never did. I smoothed the contract flat on the bed, and for the first time my hands felt steady, calm, like they remembered how to protect me. I picked up a pen and under Ethan's name on the document, I wrote 4 small words. I heard you, Ethan. I stayed in that room most of the night, barely blinking, unable to sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, his voice replayed in my head. The best gift this year would be if she just died. My own son. It burned deeper than the words themselves. And worse, the way Madison didn't even flinch when he said them, like it was an obvious fact, like my death would be a relief. The next morning I perched at the kitchen island, nursing lukewarm coffee and pretending my stomach wasn't tied in knots. Ethan shuffled in first, rubbing his eyes like a kid who'd overslept. Morning, he muttered, and I couldn't answer. If I opened my mouth, I was sure I'd scream. Madison came in, hair done, makeup flawless, scrolling on her phone without really looking at me. They moved around the kitchen as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just shattered me last night. You okay? Ethan asked finally. You look pale. Just tired, I lied. Try melatonin, Madison offered, not looking up. It works wonders. I wanted to laugh until I bent over. Does melatonin fix having a son who wants you dead? Instead, I stirred my coffee, forced a nod, and watched the little Christmas tree blink in the living room. The kids had made paper snowflakes last week and taped them to the windows. I helped with those. Always helped. Every year since I moved in, I worked to make the holidays feel magical. Stockings, crafts, even the matching pajamas Madison loved for Instagram. 3 years ago, when Ethan called me in tears because his loan fell through, I sold my house, the home their father and I built, and wired $120,000 to his account that same week. When the realtor asked whose name should go on the deed, I said both. Ethan promised I'd always have a place. "You'll live with us," he said. "The kids will love having you close." I believed him. God, I believed every word. I moved into the in-law suite with 2 suitcases and my late husband's favorite chair. Madison said my old furniture didn't fit her aesthetic, so it stayed out. Now I couldn't enter a room without asking permission. Don't move the couch. Don't rearrange the pantry. Don't use that bathroom when we have guests. I was a ghost in the house I paid for. Quiet, careful, folding towels, buying groceries, biting my tongue every time Madison rolled her eyes. "Can you pick the kids up from school today?" Ethan asked, yanking me back into the present. "Madison's got a nail appointment and I need to take the car in." "Sure," I said the same way I always did. My voice was steady on the outside. Inside I was falling apart. I sipped my coffee just to keep my hands busy. He properly looked at me and said, "Really? Are you mad about something?" "Why would I be mad?" I managed. "No reason. I'm fine." He nodded and left. Madison didn't say a word. She just stood by the fridge, eating yogurt out of the container and texting, her acrylics tapping. I wanted to smash that phone, but instead I washed the mugs, wiped the counters, and kept moving. That's what mothers do. I went upstairs to the guest room, my room, and pulled open the drawer where I kept documents I hadn't touched in years. The deed. The co-ownership agreement. A notarized letter from the lawyer. My name was still there, clear as day. They never bothered to file the papers to remove me. Said it wasn't necessary, that we were family. I stared at my signature, neat and trusting, and then at my reflection in the window. Older than I remembered, worn down, tired. I brushed my fingers along the edge of the paper and whispered, "Maybe it's time I remembered whose name is still on this house." I sat on the bed for what felt like forever, holding that deed like it was the last bit of proof that I hadn't dreamed the years I'd given, the sacrifices I'd made. Without even thinking, my hand reached into the drawer where I kept old mail, the kind you only open when something's gone wrong. The envelope on top had the mortgage company's logo. I tore it open slowly, not from nerves, but because deep down I already knew it wouldn't be good. Past due. I read the words twice, 3 times. They were 3 months behind. 3. I shot to my feet like the betrayal was too heavy to sit with. At the little desk in the corner, I flipped open my laptop. I hadn't checked the account in a long time, the one I set up when I first moved in just in case they needed help. After the 2nd year, I stopped keeping track because Ethan always acted like my money was just there if he needed it. Apparently he had needed it. Repeatedly. Thousands gone. Quiet little withdrawals, always his hand, never asking. The joint account meant for emergencies had turned into his personal ATM. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the numbers until my stomach turned. Groceries, utilities, random charges from hardware stores. I wasn't just living with them. I was funding them. Every time I thought I was helping, I was really just cleaning up their mess, quietly, without thanks. The front door creaked open downstairs. Madison's voice floated up, loud and cheerful. Way too cheerful for someone 3 months behind on the mortgage. Then Ethan's laugh followed. "Don't tell my mom. She'll freak." "She's not even up here," Madison replied. "She's always in her little cave." My fists clenched tight. I crept to the stairwell, standing just far enough that they couldn't see me. "That emergency account is empty," Ethan said flatly. "Completely drained. I checked this morning." "What about her other one?" Madison asked. "The one you said she used for Christmas gifts?" "She barely touches it. She's old school. Still writes checks for everything. Maybe she won't even notice if you pull a little. It's only a few hundred." "That's not the point," he snapped. "I'm not robbing my mother." I held my breath, waiting, hoping, for regret to soften his voice. It never came. Just a sharp, "I'll figure something out." I backed away before they could spot me. Back in my room, I sank into the desk chair, heart pounding so hard it felt like it rattled my ribs. I clicked into the other account, the one I hadn't touched since Robert died. My small safety net. Just over $18,000. Still there. Untouched. Hidden because for once I'd listened to my gut instead of my heart. I closed the laptop and started pacing, whispering to myself, "You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. They've been bleeding you dry." My head buzzed with questions I didn't want the answers to. How many times had I bailed them out without even realizing it? How many grocery trips had been paid for with my card? How many bills covered, just this once, with money I wasn't supposed to touch? I thought that was the worst of it, until I heard my son's voice behind me. "Hey Mom. You got a second?" I turned slowly. Ethan was standing in the doorway, flashing that fake smile, easy charm like nothing had happened. "Sure," I said, keeping my voice steady. "What's going on?" Madison and I were thinking, maybe after the holidays we could talk about rearranging some of the finances. Just to make things smoother. Smoother for who? For all of us, he added quickly. I mean, you've got money sitting in that emergency account. Maybe we should consolidate everything under one umbrella so nothing falls through the cracks. You could manage it. Well, yeah. I already handle most of the bills. It just makes sense. I let the silence hang long enough for him to shift on his feet. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "But that money is still mine." "Of course," he said. "I just meant." "No," I cut him off. "You meant what you said. And I heard you. All of it." He blinked. "What?" "Nothing," I said quietly. "I just need some air." I walked past him, down the stairs and out the front door before I lost it. The cold air hit me hard, but I didn't care. I circled the block, trying to calm the storm building in my chest. Every step felt like a countdown. I wasn't the one falling apart anymore. They were. And they had no idea how close I was to walking away and taking everything with me. I walked until my legs burned. When I came back, no one asked where I'd gone. Ethan was on the couch watching a game. Madison was in the kitchen lighting one of those overpriced candles she loves to post online. I went straight to my room, locked the door and pulled out the envelope I'd taped under the bottom drawer 3 years ago. Robert's handwriting was still on the label, Plan B. My heart ached just seeing it. He always told me to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. I'd never thought I'd need this. I opened it slowly like it might explode. Inside was everything. Copies of the co-ownership deed, letters from the lawyer, a list of the account numbers Robert had made me keep separate. He'd insisted we protect ourselves, even from family. Especially from family. I hated him for being right. I called Grace, the lawyer Robert and I had trusted for decades. She answered on the third ring. "Elaine, is everything okay? I need to know if the paperwork we filed on the house is still valid," I said. "The one with my name on the deed." She paused. "Of course it is. You never signed the removal. Ethan never filed it. So I still legally own 40%? "Yes." "Why?" I sank into the chair and whispered, "Because they want me dead, Grace. And they don't even hide it anymore." Her voice dropped. "Tell me what happened." I told her everything. The conversation I overheard, the drained accounts, the past due mortgage, and now their push to control my last savings account. They weren't even pretending to care anymore. "Elaine, we can act. You have power here. You're not trapped." "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want out. But I want out on my terms." "Then we draft a notice of intent to sell," she replied. "I'll have it ready tomorrow." I closed my eyes. "Make sure it goes to both of them. I want this to hit hard." After we hung up, I opened my suitcase for the first time in years and began packing. Not in a panic. Not out of fear. As I was done. I folded each piece of clothing like I was folding away the version of me that had tolerated too much for too long. I packed light. One suitcase, one handbag, my passport. I called the airline and used the points I'd been saving for a decade. The woman on the other end of the line sounded bright and cheerful when she asked, "And where will you be flying, Miss Parker?" "Paris," I said. My voice didn't even tremble. "One way." As I zipped my suitcase, Ethan knocked. "Mom, got a second?" I kept packing. "Sure." He stepped inside, his eyes catching on the suitcase. His brow furrowed. "Going somewhere?" "Thinking about it." "Is this about earlier?" "Look, I was just frustrated. Things are tight right now." "I know they are. I said, still folding my clothes. That's why I'm leaving. You don't have to do that. No, I turned and met his eyes. I really do. Is this about the money? Mom will figure it out. You don't need to stress. I tilted my head. Then why did you empty the joint account? He blinked. It was an emergency. Which one? I asked calmly. The mortgage, the credit cards, or Madison's new shoes? Don't do this, he said, his voice going sharp. You stopped treating me like family the day you said my death would be a gift. His face went pale. You heard that. Every word. I walked past him, opened the top drawer, pulled out the legal envelope and handed it to him. What's this? Why answer? I watched his hands tremble as he opened it. You're forcing a sale? Or you can buy me out. Your choice. You can't be serious, Mom. I'm flying to Paris in 2 days. Believe me, I've never been more serious. He stared at the paper. We don't have that kind of money. Then you'd better find it, I said evenly, because Plan B is already in motion. The next morning I woke up to Lindsay's screaming. At first I thought something had happened to the kids. But then I heard Ethan downstairs. I don't know. Yeah, I paid it. Well, I thought I did. I walked to the top of the stairs. They were both in the kitchen, faces red and wild. The Christmas tree in the living room was dark. No lights, no music, no fake fireplace flickering on the TV. December 24th. The power had been shut off. This can't be happening. Madison snapped, slamming the fridge door. We have guests coming tomorrow. My mother's flying in from Chicago. We'll figure it out, Ethan said. Just calm down. Calm down. Her voice cracked. Did you forget to pay the electric bill? No, he said, stopping himself. You thought what? I asked, stepping slowly down the stairs. Ethan looked at me like a deer in headlights. You thought I'd pay it? My voice stayed low. I didn't need to raise it. I mean, haven't you been? No, Ethan. Not anymore. He rubbed his forehead. You're really doing this now? You told me to disappear, I said. This is me disappearing quietly. Responsibly. Just out of the way like you wanted. Madison stared at me. You can't just cancel payments without telling anyone. You mean like you canceled my presence in this house months ago? I walked to the kitchen, opened the cabinet and pulled down a wrapped tin of cookies I'd baked for the girls. You made your choice. I'm making mine. I set the tin on the counter and turned back toward the stairs. What are we supposed to tell the kids? Ethan called after me. They'll wake up tomorrow to a freezing house and no lights. Maybe tell them the truth, I said. That some gifts come with a cost, and you ran out of credit. I spent the day finishing the little packing I had left. Folded sweaters. 2 scarves. 1 good coat. My passport was already tucked into the front pocket of my carry-on. Around 3 in the afternoon I crept downstairs while they were arguing in the garage. I placed a small gift for each grandchild under the tree. Just 1 each. No ribbons. No glittery bags. Just simple brown paper with their names scrawled in thick marker. Inside each box was a letter from me. The letters I left for the kids weren't goodbyes. They were just love, memories, and reminders that none of this was ever their fault. Back upstairs I sat on the bed with my suitcase at my side. For the first time in weeks I smiled. But deep down something still felt off. Right before dinner my phone buzzed. Grace had emailed the official notice to Ethan's and Madison's personal inboxes. Subject line: Notice of intent to sell, Elaine Parker. Perfect timing. The lights never came back on. Around 7, Madison stormed into the kitchen, snatched her car keys and left without saying a word. Ethan ran after her, shouting. I didn't follow. I stayed in my room listening to them fall apart piece by piece. At 4 in the morning I rolled my suitcase down the hallway and stairs as quietly as I could. The house was dark, cold, silent. I paused in the entryway, my hand on the door handle, my heart pounding but steady. I pulled it open slowly and stepped outside. Snow was just beginning to fall, a thin dusty layer settling on the steps. I closed the door behind me, walked to the edge of the driveway where the airport shuttle waited and climbed inside. As the driver pulled away I looked back once. The tree in the window was still dark. Not a single light blinked. That was their Christmas. And they didn't even know what my real gift was yet. I landed in Paris just after noon and I didn't cry once on the flight. Not when the plane lifted off. Not when the captain welcomed us to Charles de Gaulle. Not even when the man sitting beside me asked if I was meeting family. No, I told him with a small smile. I left them behind. I wheeled my suitcase through the airport with steady hands and a quiet mind. The taxi ride into the city was long, but I didn't mind. Holiday banners stretched across the buildings. People rushed by in coats, lovers holding hands. No one knew who I was, and for the first time in years that wasn't scary. It felt like freedom. I met with Marianne, an old friend of Robert's from his university days. She pressed apartment keys into my hand and said, "Stay as long as you need." I thanked her and I meant it. I unpacked just enough, 2 drawers, 1 small closet. I made tea, opened the window and sat quietly. That night I zipped my coat up to my chin and walked along the Seine. The air stung my face, but it made me feel alive. I wasn't floating in someone else's house anymore. I wasn't invisible. I was here. I'd barely closed the door behind me when my phone buzzed again. Then Madison. Again and again. Missed calls, unread messages. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I already knew exactly what they were saying. The next morning I opened my email and saw a message from Grace. Subject line, "You might want to read this." She'd forwarded the thread from the mortgage company. Ethan had called them in a panic. "The mortgage is in danger. We're in default. Elaine Parker isn't responding. She must be traveling. She's not part of the household anymore." Grace's reply was short and sharp. "Miss Parker remains a co-owner, and she is fully within her rights to act accordingly." I read it twice, then wrote back, "Please handle everything through legal channels. I'm unavailable for direct contact." I was standing by the window watching the Eiffel Tower sparkle against the night sky, when my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Ethan. It was the mortgage lender. "Is this Miss Elaine Parker?" "It is. We're calling about a co-owned property that is currently in arrears. We've received your legal filing, but we'd like to confirm your intentions moving forward." "My lawyer will handle everything," I said calmly. "Please direct all communication to her." "Miss Parker, are you aware the other party has expressed difficulty meeting the current payment obligations?" "Yes," I said. "I'm aware. And you still wish to proceed with the intent to sell?" I stared out at the street below. "Yes, I do." After I hung up, I flipped my phone over and set it face down on the table. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was taking up space, claiming space for the first time in years. I grabbed the back of a grocery receipt and made 2 columns. One was titled Things They Took, the other What I Have Left. The first list was long. Time, money, trust, holidays, my voice, my place. The second list was shorter. Dignity, proof, control, a passport, and now Paris. The next morning, Grace emailed again. "They're begging to negotiate. Are you ready?" I didn't reply right away. I stood at the window, fingers curled around my mug, watching the world keep moving forward as though I'd never existed in theirs. My son had thought he could break me. What he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I wasn't just gone. I was building a life where their access had been revoked. One breath. One page. One email at a time. I waited until the first week of January, not out of kindness, but because I wanted the silence to stretch. I wanted them to sit in it. Cold nights. Overdue bills. No idea where I'd gone or if I was ever coming back. Then I mailed the letter. Not an email. Not a text. Not a call. A real letter, sealed in a plain white envelope with Ethan's name on the front in my handwriting. I knew he'd recognize it. I paid extra for next day delivery. And then I waited. It didn't take long. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with an incoming video call from him. I didn't answer. A minute later, another from Madison. Then a text from her. "How dare you?" I smiled and set the phone on the coffee table. I'd written the letter with care. No rage. No insults. Just truth, hard, uncomfortable truth. I'd detailed every dollar I'd contributed, every payment I'd made, every sacrifice they'd forgotten. I wrote about the night I overheard them, the power outage, the silence, the lies. And then I wrote the final paragraph. "This house was a gift. So was I. You lost both. You can either refinance the mortgage on your own or sell and downsize. Either way, I'm done covering for people who only see me as a burden. Consider this your final Christmas gift." The phone rang again. And again. I finally answered on the 3rd try. "What were you thinking?" Ethan snapped. You mailed the letter like this. You gave me no choice. You humiliated us. You humiliated me first, I said evenly. Over and over. We didn't mean it. Yes, you did. My voice stayed steady. And now you get to live with it. Do you have any idea what you've done? I gave you exactly what you asked for, I said. I disappeared. He paused, and for a moment I thought I heard him choke up. You blindsided us, Mom. No, I said softly. You just weren't paying attention. I ended the call before he could respond. I leaned back on the couch, took a deep breath, and looked out the window at the narrow Parisian street below. A couple walked by laughing. A man in a scarf carried a baguette under his arm. Life kept moving. I hadn't thought about revenge when I wrote that letter. It wasn't revenge. It was about reclaiming what had been chipped away at for years. My worth. That letter wasn't written to hurt. It was written to end the bleeding, to stop pretending that love means letting yourself be drained dry. Later that night, another message came from Madison. Just one sentence. You've ruined us. That was Madison's message. I read it twice, then deleted it without a second thought. Their ruin wasn't my doing. It was their entitlement, their manipulation, their belief that I'd keep giving no matter how cruel they became. My only crime was finally saying no. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and opened the little notebook I'd been keeping. At the top of the next page I wrote one word. Freedom. Just below it another, finally. I hadn't planned on responding. I really hadn't. But when Ethan sent that last message, you owe us at least a conversation, something inside me cracked. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, lips pressed tight. Then I called him. One ring. Two. He picked up. You finally decided to talk, he said. This isn't a conversation, I said. It's clarity. We're your family, Mom. You're the people who watched me cook, clean, pay, babysit, and still whispered that I was in the way. He went quiet. You said the greatest gift would be if I just died, remember? I didn't mean it like that. But you said it. And you meant it enough to let her say it in front of you, and you didn't stop her. You're twisting everything. No, I said calmly. I'm finally seeing it straight. We didn't ask you to leave like that. You ghosted us. You left the kids confused. I left letters for each of them. I made sure they'd never blame themselves. Can you say the same? We're drowning, Mom. The mortgage is underwater. Madison's mom backed out of helping. We're selling furniture to stay afloat. You built a house on a foundation I paid for, and now that I've stepped away it's collapsing. That's not on me. So what? You just abandon us. No, I said. I'm holding you accountable. We're not bad people. You're not evil, I said. But you were selfish. You were entitled. And you treated me like a live-in ATM with no feelings. That's over. What do you want from us? Nothing. That's the point. He sighed. So that's it. No. You'll hear from Grace. She's drawing up the documents. The house will be sold. You'll get your share after I take mine back. What's left is yours to rebuild with. Rebuild with what? There's barely anything left. Then maybe you'll finally understand what it's like to start over. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. Relief. I stood, walked to the mirror above the fireplace, and looked at myself for a long time. Not to check my hair or makeup. Just to see who I was now. Not a ghost. Not a doormat. Not the woman who quietly disappeared to make others comfortable. I was someone who drew a line and stayed behind it. Someone who stopped bleeding for people who never offered a bandage. That night I went out for dinner alone to a small restaurant near Rue Claire. The waiter asked if I was celebrating something. I almost said no. Then I smiled. Yes, I said. I didn't explain. I didn't owe him that. I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. When I got back to the apartment, I poured another glass of wine and opened my notebook. This time I titled the page "What I Will Never Do Again." I wrote, I will never beg to be respected. I will never explain myself to people who only listen to respond. I will never call it love if it leaves me empty. My phone buzzed once more. A photo from Ethan. The Christmas tree half lit, ornaments sparse, the kids asleep in the background. No message. No caption. Just the image. I stared at it for a few seconds, then turned my phone off and closed the notebook. I wasn't swimming back. That bridge had burned and I didn't miss the smoke. The final papers came through on a Tuesday morning. The apartment was silent except for the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. I sat at the little table with the documents in front of me, reading each line one more time. It was all official now. The house was sold. The debts were settled. The accounts were cleared. Ethan and Madison would get what was left. It wasn't much, but it was fair. My name had been removed cleanly and legally. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad either. Still. I packed the folder, slid it into my carry-on and checked the clock again. My train was coming soon. As I zipped the suitcase, my phone buzzed. A voice message from Ethan. I hesitated, then pressed play. "You win," he said. His voice sounded flat, tired. "We're moving into an apartment near Madison's mom. The kids don't understand what's happening. Neither do I really, but I guess it's what we deserve. If that's what you needed, you got it." I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something. His pain wasn't mine to manage anymore. I'd spent years absorbing guilt, blame, and the heaviness of everyone else's chaos. I wasn't doing that anymore. I stood at the window watching the Paris traffic slide by. Then I turned, rolled my suitcase to the door and locked the apartment behind me. The taxi driver helped load my bags. "Business or vacation?" he asked. "Closure," I said quietly. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. At the station I found my seat, leaned back and watched the city blur past the window. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who kept the peace, who swallowed her voice to hold the family together. That woman was gone. She didn't just leave. She evolved. My thoughts drifted to the kids. I missed them. That part still ached. But I'd left each of them something: letters, photos, memories. One day they'd read those letters. One day they'd understand that love isn't measured by how much you give until there's nothing left. Love lives in the boundaries you draw to survive. I pulled out my notebook one last time. At the top of the final page I wrote, "I didn't just walk away. I walked toward myself." I stared at those words, then added one more line beneath them. "Let them learn from the echo of my absence." As the train rolled forward, so did I, not toward revenge, not toward regret, but toward peace. The kind you earn. Not the kind you beg for. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments.